In 2022, I pulled up to a gas station in my little surf town with my van loaded full of tools and materials, and I needed to get some gas to get to this project I was finishing up for a client. I designed and built a prefabricated little cabin, really sexy, amazing, for this client that lived about 30 miles away from me. And I remember the moment of putting my credit card into the gas tank, grabbing the diesel pump, and starting to try to pump diesel into my van, to realize that only like $2.56 came out. And I was like, oh, maybe the pump's messed up. So I pulled around and parked to the other pump. My gas light is still on. And same thing, I went to sort of pump gas and it wouldn't even go. And I remember pulling up my bank account and seeing that my bank account was overdrafted by a negative $154 or something like that. And so I wasn't able to get gas. And I remember that moment where it sank in so deep, where I was overextending myself and people-pleasing this client so strongly and unconsciously that it just ran me to burnout. It ran me to just lose myself, and it created a really painful chapter of my life. And so I want to speak to how people-pleasing shows up in business, especially anyone that does any sort of creative work. And I want to speak to this because I'm an award-winning furniture designer, and I've learned a fucking lot about what it means to give your gifts to the world, and I have a long way to go. But now I get to help ambitious creatives design and build aligned businesses, and part of that is doing all that deep stuff too. So to kind of continue that story, I had to go into the coffee shop in the little beach town, and my partner at the time, I had to ask her if I could use her card to get me like 15 bucks of gas. And of course, like, it's like a sure, you know, but just that moment is like a wow. I'm overextending myself. I'm in between being paid. I need to finish before I get paid, and I'm having to ask someone so that I can get gas. I mean, that was just like such a powerful moment of like, damn, you know, like I've lost myself here. And I finished up that project, and it broke me down. I thought it was going to be, you know, 2 weeks on site, or I thought it was going to be 2 days on site, you know, putting this thing up, and I couldn't get any help, so I had to do it all alone, and it was just crazy situation. And I remember driving home, loaded up with tools. I had smashed my head was bleeding, and I was bawling because I lost myself. It's like I thought it was what I wanted to do, and it's not wrong, it's in the right direction, but it's like even the thing that I love the most, I lost myself in. And so I really learned, like, I'm never gonna do that again. I'm gonna try my best to never do that again. So people-pleasing shows up in so many ways. I kept saying yes to things that were a no. Yeah, sure, I'll do that for you. Oh, I add that on. Yeah, I'm already here. I'll do that. Yes, yes, yes. Until what started off as X was now a freaking whole basket of Y, a basket of Z, you know, all this extra stuff. And I see it happen all the time as anyone who offers a service, especially things that you do with your hands. Like, oh, can you just maybe like also build this little thing? And then say, oh, sure. And the next thing you know, you're expanded way past your capacity. And no one really teaches us to say no, especially when money's involved. When it's a client that's asking for something and they're paying you money, you think that you owe them all the yeses in the world, which might not be wrong. And I think it's important as you're starting to sort of learn those hard lessons of where you stretch yourself thin. But if there's no structure, which means if there's no clear boundary and no defined, there's very little sort of amplification of the value of the work that could happen. What I mean by that, having a clear agreement of what you're working on, knowing where those no's are. I'm not available to do more than this. No, sorry, I can't do that for you. This is what we're focusing on. Creates a container. And the energy of what you create can be more amplified because it's not just leaking off into the periphery. It's not just leaking off behind the fences, per se. You know, you're not letting the cows graze on the neighbor's property, so to speak. And I found that then there's much greater of a value, exchange of values happening. you're giving your gifts, you're creating something, and there's a very clear value, especially if there's the transaction involved, there's a very clear exchange of, I'm giving you my value of beauty and design, and you're exchanging it for your value of beauty and design in the form of money, this much money. And that's a really beautiful thing that happens because there's a clear agreement. But when it keeps expanding and I'll add this and I'll add that, the exchange of values becomes a little unclear. It's like, well, what actually are you valuing? Are you valuing the quality of the work or the quantity of the work? And that's where the people pleaser shows up. We just want to make the client happy. We just want to make the client happy at all costs. And I want to draw the distinction, like, you can create happy, thrilled clients without abandoning yourself and losing yourself and going way, way, way above and beyond and doing all this extra stuff that you said you weren't going to do or didn't expect to do. I find that the happiest clients are the ones where I have the most clear agreement. The most clear agreement of, this is the process we're going to work through, this is how I see it unfolding, this is the timeline of payment or whatever, and this is how I think you're going to, in the physical service, this is the product that you're going to get, and this is going to take this long, and we'll communicate as things change, and this is the price, and this is set in stone. Any changes when we need to communicate. And then in the more kind of consulting agency kind of route, it's like, this is the transformation I facilitate. Here's how I like to approach the process. How does that feel for you? Let's come into agreement. This is going to be 6 weeks. We're going to talk every week, X, Y, and Z. And I just find that there's such a more clear value exchange that happens there versus having things just open and unbounded, So when we address the people pleaser in our creative business, we start to see with how much we're sourcing safety and validation and security from our clients. And that is a slippery slope. Oh my God, that is a slippery slope. Because we are now giving them the power to determine our worth. That is where the rubber really hits the road and starts to take you in one of two directions, You either fawn and acquiesce and people please, and you sort of lose touch with yourself, your heart, and your gift giving, and ultimately end up being taken advantage of to some degree, whether that's conscious or unconscious. Or the route of, no, I know where my line and my boundary is, this is what I'm not available for, and standing in that power, even if they say no. Because this is what happens when you start to really observe how you have this tendency of just trying to satisfy your clients at all costs and doing stuff you wouldn't normally do. Who is the type of people that you're attracting, right? So projects where you start to lay down this the more clear agreement, and the agreement isn't like a rigid no play, no fun. The agreement is just to come into harmony about how this is going to unfold and what we can expect and what we can create together. It's not like a closed-hearted arm thing like this, I'm going to sue you if you go over the line. No. But what you see is the type of people that you attract into your world, and clients tend to be people that are of that energy. They respond, they expect, and they want people to sort of please to them. They want to have the power hierarchy, even if it's unconscious, right? And it's like we can forgive everyone involved, right? No one's in the right or wrong. It's just only you can take responsibility for yourself. So that shift is a long, awkward, painful shift to start to say no to work that's not aligned, to not go over the top and people please. And it can start small. For me, it was being in a project, and when someone says, oh, can you also do this and this and this? It's like, no, sorry, I can't do that for you. That's not my line of work, but I can refer you to someone who can. And then inevitably that turns into some argument, and because it's not as elegant as it sounds, and then we get a chance to really grow and repair, and it's beautiful, right? But you'll start to notice that saying no is edgy, but it makes you feel so much more embodied and confident in some way. Because if you can say no, that's really trustable, right? And so slowly, for how I saw it play out for me and how I see it play out for other people, is the more that you can get clear on what you're not available for, you have more space to really say what's a yes for you, and you can feel it. So when a client comes into your world and it's a yes, those are amazing clients. And that might be, you might only get half the amount of work that you used to get, which can be really frightening, right? But that amount of work can be worth double, triple, quadruple, 10 times more, and the experience is so much more life-giving and makes you come more alive. So for me, there's been multiple phases where I have to constantly refine my yes and my no, especially in my business. But there was one season where it was like, finished up a big project, and it was kind of like, it was a middle ground, and I just was like, gosh, I know I can get more clear on what I truly want to be giving. And then there was like a 6-week period where every project that I was potentially going to do was no, and I didn't accept the project for like 6 weeks, and I was getting like scared at that point. I'm like, Jesus, am I gonna be on the streets? Am I gonna make it? Why am I being so stubborn? Why am I pushing money away? Even though I knew it's not even worth it to do a project like that just for the money. It's not worth my capacity, you know. I love myself too much to abandon me. And then finally, kind of at the last, towards the last end of that 6 weeks, when I'm kind of like sitting with so much uncomfort and discomfort, but staying true and being patient and continually giving and offering and opening and marketing. The most super aligned client came by that was just gung-ho, ready, let's do this big project, carte blanche, we want to make it the best that it can be, you're the person for us, and our energy is really aligned. And I was like, that is such a beautiful testament to what it means to stay aligned and go through those tests of, here's something that's 50% aligned, what are you going to say? No. Here's something that's 70% aligned, what are you going to say? No. Here's something that's 90% aligned, what are you going to say? And you're like, no. And then like waiting for the thing that is, 100% fuck yes, which isn't really realistic. It's usually like a 99.999. I get it, But life does present us those opportunities to deepen our connection to our yes and our no. And the more that we can sort of, work with and transform that people pleaser in our own lives, in our own work, it only is leading us to do bigger, better, greater, more fulfilling things. So if you are a people pleaser in business, experiment with what it's like to say no and to express a boundary, to feel what it's like in your body to draw a line that is a loving doorway. And that doorway has to be walked through by both people, not just you blasting it down to meet the other person's needs. So this is a little snapshot. This is a huge topic, and I don't think I see a lot of people talking about it. So I wanted to give a little intro crack at it. If you want more depth and juice, the newsletter is the place to be. And for more experiences and experiments with how you can deepen your practice as an embodied creative, Embodied Creator Toolkit is my training below. Check it out. But in the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.